To assimilate concepts of the data and lobotomized. Our hopes were cut up. See you were expecting.
Here we are. If it be your will podcast, we're blazing through season 4 here. And today, again, reaching across the pond. It's been these nice little voyages. So I'm heading over to the UK here. I have Matthew Thomas Dillon from Windmill. Amazing piano-driven, indie pop, alternative, sometimes heartbreaking lyrics over top of playful, imaginative songs. And today we're going to kind of break into that and learn all about Matthew and his music. So thanks, Matthew, for hopping on.
Thanks for having me. You made me sound good.
Well,
I need to listen to this guy. He sounds good. Yeah, right up my street.
That's right. Windmill's been around for a long time, and you're Windmill. You've been making music for quite a while. I mean, I found your first, and tell me if I'm wrong here, your first album 2007. I mean, it's probably prior to that, but that was your first kind of like introduction to Windmill, introducing Windmill to the world.
Yeah, I'd been recording like since I was sort of about 16 years old, just on a 4-track and stuff like that. But like, I wouldn't let anyone hear it, either that or no one was interested in hearing it. Like, I was not from a creative background or anything like that. So like, it was like my secret shame, my humiliation to kind of sit and make these songs. But then that kind of gave me sort of a freedom, to do like weird stuff on them, animal noises and crawling around on all fours, barking and stuff like that. So I was doing that for a long time. And then I kind of just gave up because it was like, what future do I have? Like, and people like in the small town I was from sort of expected you to like be in an office by that point and stuff like that. Right. And it was just like, oh God, like, what am I going to do? Like, I was totally lost. And then a few years later, for some reason, I was just like, I want to start making things again. Like, it was just for my own sanity, or I just wanted to some sort of expression. And then even then I was, and that's when I wrote most of the songs that went on that album.
Okay.
But I think I was about 24 at this point. So it's sort of quite late, and like never had I played live or anything like that. So quite an unusual path. And then for some reason, I don't know if it was outside encouragement or I don't know, I just suddenly found the will to share it. But I made just a very small stack of demo CDs. And then this is back in the MySpace era. So like I had a few songs on MySpace. Like I basically had the Puddle City Racing Lights, but all in demo form.
Okay.
So yeah, they sounded quite different, but so I made up these little demo CDs, and then I just found this one guy, Nick Davis, and he ran like a student promotions company for indie labels. Okay. So he worked with like 4AD and XL and all these cool labels, and he would send out their new tracks to student unions and things like that, and he would get feedback on the tracks and stuff like that. And like, I sent it to this guy, like incredibly nervous, because I just like, no one had heard this stuff at all. And I thought it was just going to be completely ridiculed. And I mean, I don't have that great a self-esteem as it is. So this was like my big leap. And and he said he absolutely loved it. And then he just kept pushing it, and he got us showcases, things like that, so people came and saw me play live and things like that. And then ended up getting like a 7-inch with a label called Static Caravan. Great. And then a company called In-House Press did the press release for it. And the guy that owned In-House Press owned Melodic Records, and he was like, actually, I really want to make a Windmill album. So it kind of went from nothing to suddenly I was in this world like I dreamt about. It's kind of, it was amazing. I couldn't believe it. But that's all over now. So
well, not all over. I mean, you're still very productive. It seems like if you go to your Bandcamp page, there are a lot of interesting releases and stuff that's just come out like just this year as well. So that activity is definitely there. I wanted to ask you, Matt, though, is like, when did you start writing music? Like, when did that door open for you? When, like, what are your recollections of that as you were starting off thinking, maybe I'd like to write and put myself out there? Do you remember those earlier times where
Yeah. I
yeah,
liked really terrible pop music. Like, it was like it's all I'd been exposed to. I hadn't heard indie music, alternative music, anything like
mm,
that. This is sort of like early, sort of mid-teens. So I'm at
sure,
that stage
sure.
now where I should be rebelling and listening to cool stuff. But I remember I got like a CD, like a portable CD player, and the first album I got was like an Eternal album, which was like this girl band in the UK, like just
Right.
awful stuff. And so for a while, like I was begging for like a keyboard because I suddenly like I like the idea. I like the look of people sitting playing the piano, like it was cool. Like I like that
Right.
image.
Right.
And so I just like on a whim, like I wanted this keyboard. So yeah, I started
This was
writing
still in your teens, eh, Matt? Like,
still
this
in
was
my
still in your,
teens. Yeah,
okay.
exactly. So I was writing these awful kind of pop songs, and then a friend a friend of mine, John Tuff, had the Eels single "Novocaine for a Soul," which I really like that song, but it had this like other song, like a B-side on it, and I remember like I don't know, it just opened this whole world to me. It was like
Wow.
I don't know, because this other music, like it's all I was exposed to, but it just didn't sit right with me. And then
Right.
suddenly this Ill single just really spoke to me. Like it was felt a
Wow.
bit more dangerous. Like it said "fuck" in it, and I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, this is great."
Rated.
Yeah, exactly. It was
Right on.
different, and it just felt like it only existed to convey a message. Like it was like
Wow.
the guy from Ills. It wasn't pandering to anything, and it just had
Right.
great lyrics, like things expressed in a way that you'd never heard before. And it
Mm,
was like, oh man, that's who I want to be. And
mm.
and that
And that
just
was your inspiration to say, okay, I'm gonna sit down behind these keys and try to put some lyrics to it. Like, what's your
yeah, I
process
think
like
so.
when you started writing? Like, would you like tinkle the keys, or would you have a
Mm.
line that you would be gravitating to? Like, how would your songs start to surface up to the surface?
Yeah, so I would never really have an idea. It would always be I would start just with like a little piano riff or something like
Mm-hmm.
that, or
Mm-hmm.
I just had a little 4-track cassette recorder, and then I also saved up and bought like this kind of like reverb machine that I could do different stuff with and stuff like that. And then quite quickly I got into much more experimental stuff, and it was like
Okay.
10-second songs, or just screaming about something, or just naming the list of people I wanted to kill, and realized like I had
It's
this
just some light
side.
material.
Yeah, exactly. This needs to be released. This will be my big
Right.
comeback album. Will be the killer tapes. And then so and it just kind of, and then it kind of was like I was sort of trapped in this small town, had no way to get out. Like there was no one really artistic that I knew that
Mm,
could guide me or anything like that. And then quite quickly my recordings became about, and it's a similar sentiment that was on Puddle Situation Lights, but it started to become more about sort of ambition and
mm,
escape and almost a fantasy life of like, and that's how I was writing these things, because I had no
right.
intention of ever letting anyone hear it. So it was more
Right.
like pretending I was a sort of well-known Americana act.
Like, you created a kind of a persona that you would sing through.
Exactly.
Huh,
Exactly.
that's cool.
Exactly.
That's
So it
cool.
was like, imagine if, my uncle worked for, a record label and could get, could get these songs to people. I would sort of make up scenarios like that. I would just
Mm.
pretend that they were the best songs in the world. And really it was like, just 10 seconds of like reverse piano and, me sort of expressing despair.
Right.
And
Right.
again, that
Right.
sounds quite good, but
It's
if you actually listen to it's quite a letdown.
But then you came out with like, so you were saying your first official record in 2007,
Yeah,
Puddle City Racing Lights. That was your
yeah,
first kind of compilation of songs under Windmill name
exactly.
that you released out there to the world.
Yeah, and
Um,
it moved fast because
yeah,
I didn't even have a toe in that world. It was all a
right,
fantasy, and then suddenly
mm,
there's like press releases and like being offered big tours and getting
right,
big sync placements and stuff like that. Like it really was, a dream come true
right,
like very
right.
quickly. Yeah. And,
Like,
yeah.
what do you remember the reaction that you got when that first record came out? Like, what your the reaction to it was that you were getting from the world?
Yeah, it was kind of like mind blowing, and
Mm,
also like it was like everything you could have wished for. Like
mm,
you couldn't believe what people were saying about it, because it was my record and I saw all the faults in it, and I
yeah,
worried it wasn't as good as the demos, and it like
mm,
a lot of the vocals I felt like I tried to recreate them instead of just singing them like fresh, like which I always loved doing, and I was
mhm,
really worried about it, but yeah, no, honestly, it really couldn't have gone better,
yeah.
and people were saying how much it meant to them and things like that, and it was weird, like, and actually sort of hard to accept, it's
Mm,
yeah,
yeah,
like
yeah.
didn't
It,
really
it
feel
it
like
does
they were
happen
talking about
fast
my
sometimes, right? Like it's you
yeah.
don't almost have time to let it register that, and you just get caught up in this wave of I guess excitement, number
Hmm.
one, I hope, and
Yeah.
anticipation, and um, what how did you gather all those songs together? Like, there are two bonus tracks, Racing and Shutters. Like,
Yeah.
how did you assemble this first record in 2007?
Yeah, so most of them were done. The only one that was written specifically was Shutters for the Japanese. They wanted an exclusive track for Japan because it was coming out on Beat Inc. in Japan, which is like a really great record label in Japan. So they wanted an
Hmm.
exclusive track. I think I wrote that in 10 minutes. Like that was
Wow.
like it's probably the only time in my life that musically that I sort of like was riding a wave of confidence. I wasn't second guessing myself. And then
Wow,
you write a
that's cool.
subpar song called Shutters, so you're actually better to have the low self confidence and keep questioning. But Racing was that was the 7-inch single that
Okay.
Static Caravan released, but a demo version. So we did re-record it, and then
Right.
everybody felt it didn't sit on the album as well as the other songs. So
Okay.
that just became, I think that was a US bonus track.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah. And Shutters
Um,
was a Japanese bonus track. And
yeah.
like, when you look back on that record, what are the songs that still mean something to you and that you can re-listen to? Because I know, like, once you've gone through that cycle, it's kind of like,
Hmm.
yeah, thanks. I don't need to listen to this anymore. Like, you get so inundated by it. But what are the
Yeah.
songs looking back over all these years that you're like, man, that was a fucking great tune I wrote? Like, what are some of those songs
Ooh,
off of Puddle
yeah.
that you have?
I don't know. I don't think I'd go that far to say it was that good, but I don't know. I mean, Tokyo Moon kept a roof over my head sometimes because they kept putting it in adverts, but that's not a
Right.
reason to love it. What song? I think "Replace Me" probably
Yeah.
was pretty good, and "Boarding Lounges" was kind of like that was kind of the exact thing I was trying to convey, like that sense of ambition. Even
Mm,
though when I wrote that song, it was like a fantasy ambition because I hadn't
right.
really been anywhere.
Right.
But the idea of like, departure lounge and billboards, all this stuff
Hmm.
really appealed to me because it was like the
Yeah.
exact opposite of the town I was growing up in. So that song, yeah, I think, yeah, maybe Boarding Lounges actually, because it just felt like
Yeah.
the song felt like you were going somewhere and it was the
Right.
beginning of something. And
Right.
that's kind of what that album was for me in my life. It
Mm.
was, the
It's
start.
interesting you saying that too, Matt, that it was kind of this persona and this detachment from you, because it does feel like from your cover and some of the lyrics of, you get this idea of displacement and kind of
Mm,
loneliness a bit, but in this kind of futuristic. So it had this distance that it wasn't quite you, but
mm,
is you. I just found that, like, when you mentioned that, really interesting, that it was kind of through a lens of something um
yeah,
that was a little
yeah.
bit less removed. Was that like a protective thing, so that you weren't putting your heart on your sleeve and saying no, this, like, having that distance where it wasn't so close to you, and that you could kind of just be like, yeah, that's my persona of what I play?
Yeah, possibly. And also, I've always just had like a love of within art, just not saying things exactly as they are, like to
Right.
try and use kind of a web of poetry just to
Mm,
kind of paint a picture. So it ends up being more like I don't really think of it as songs really. I like to think of them more as like, I don't know, just like listening to a memory or looking at a photograph, you know? I just want to
Mm,
give hints of things without saying
right.
exactly what it's about, even though, because you don't know when you're recording these things as well. Like sometimes the best stuff is just without an idea,
Mm,
and you just make sure you're just operating from the subconscious, and that's sometimes frightening because you think, oh, I've made something, but did I do it intentionally? Does that devalue it, the fact that I haven't
mm,
intended to make this thing? But the
right.
subconscious, I think, is really where that stuff comes from. And
Yeah.
quite often when you record something just purely subconsciously, even if you're doubting the fact that it has no real intention, like it is cohesive at the end, and you realize what
Hmm.
it's about on reflection.
Mm,
And it's probably the only thing that
interesting.
keeps me doing it, is the fact that it's like, it's a bit like like you mentioned my blog. It's just
Yeah.
like it's just a record of like what I'm going through. I mean, that's really the only value I have in
Yeah.
doing it
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that idea of archiving experiences. I mean, who knows who's going to read it in the end? It might just be,
Exactly.
an
Exactly.
earmark in time for who knows. But I
Maybe
love
my
that
parents will listen
gathering
to it
and
one day. Who knows?
that's it. That's it. That's it.
We haven't got long left, but yeah.
And Matt, when you moved on to the second one, so you had gotten such a good response from that first. What was your vision with the next record that came out, which was, I have it here, Epcot Starfields. Again, very futuristic looking, very
Yeah.
um it has that kind of distance and similar themes that came in the first record. Did you feel like you had to like dramatically change everything or change
Mm.
your process, or like what was it from that first record and getting the attention it got going into that second record?
Yeah, I definitely didn't just want to make another Puddle City Racing Lights. I also, as much as I really appreciated like recording in the studio and stuff like that, like I did have a dissatisfaction with the process and also just how it sounded.
Mm,
But I am my own worst enemy in a sense, because everyone really likes that record. Like,
yeah.
and that record did much better than if we just released the demos, because they're quite rough. But I
Right.
really missed that kind of rough feel, and I wanted to put it back in, which is, yeah, probably a big mistake. So I kind of said I want to do like half of it at home and
Okay.
finish the rest of it in the studio. So the
Right.
label sort of bought me a MacBook and stuff like that, and I had no idea what I was doing with it at all. So like these bare bones of this album ended up in the studio, and we just about saved it. But the concept, I think, is the first time, because Puddle City Racing Lights wasn't written as an album.
Mm,
I thought, oh, here's a chance to actually write an album. And I
okay.
just like that idea and that challenge. There was a
Hmm.
bunch of songs that I had that probably would have been the second album. I released the demos of on a collection called Converse Chasing Neon. So that might have been the second album. But then I just had this idea of like the Epcot Center being this kind of symbol of like a future, and also like the like time moving on, because I'd been there like with my family and stuff like that. And it
Right.
was kind of like, I don't know, I thought it was like a good kind of metaphor for time passing, because Epcot's focused on the future
Hmm.
and this sort of idyllic kind of experimental city, but also, you go there when you're a kid. And so it's really, yeah, it was really about time passing and sort of facing mortality, but in the
Mm.
framework of the Epcot Center, which I just thought was kind of a novel, interesting idea. I mean, I
Yeah.
remember telling my friends, they're like, "Oh, what are you going to do now? Like, you've got like a good record, stuff like that. Like, you've got the world at your feet." And I was like, "Oh, I'm going to write an album about the Epcot Center." And they were just like, "You fucking idiot! That's a terrible idea. Don't do that." And
But
they
you
were
did
right. Yeah,
it.
exactly,
Nice.
exactly.
And what were the first couple of songs that came through, like that started to solidify this record, that okay, I'm starting to get the idea of how I'm gonna assemble this record?
Yeah, I'm quite good at like visualizing what the album should be. So I had quite a clear image of what it would be. So I really was kind of writing the songs in sequence. When
Okay.
when we were putting Puddle City together, like I really wanted Boarding Lounges to be the first track, and the
Mm,
label did say no, like we don't think it should be the first one. Like let's put Tokyo Moon. Like no one knows who you are, no one's heard it. let's put Tokyo Moon, like get them hooked with that, big kind of positive song, and then lead them in. So I sort of felt like I'd made that concession then, so it was time to. So I really wanted to have a really sparse opener. Like I just had the image of floating in space before you before you're born onto the planet, and then like you have to leave the planet, and these are all themes. And I really wanted to do that album as a journey. It started off where I kind of got worse as it went on, but yeah.
Was the reaction when you put Epcot Starfield out, was it similar to the first record, or was it different?
Some people really loved it, and I don't think it didn't get the attention that the first one got. But I mean, even like quite recently, I've heard people say, "I didn't even realize you had a second album," which is I don't know whose failing that is. Maybe that's mine, but it's so it's lesser known, but
Okay.
But I think that's my entire music career. Like each release is slightly less loved.
Well, there's always a couple of years between those. Well, your record releases, 2007, 2009, 2013. And then you said at the start of this that you kind of like washed your hands of it. We're like, okay, I'm going to stop doing this. Like, what was your thinking behind that of saying, okay, I just can't do it anymore? Like what was driving you to that decision?
Well, like the sort of promotion and tour and stuff of the second album definitely didn't feel like the first one. There's like, there's definitely like less people that want to talk to you, and like less, I don't know, there's like less buzz about it and stuff like that. Although it was going okay, but like you can sort of feel internally that like this thing is dying. And you've been waiting your whole life for this identity, and you finally get it. And you just think, oh, it's gone already. Like it's dying. Like what can you do? So then I don't know. I wanted to follow up. Like I still had and then I wrote this bunch of songs that went on the third album. I really wasn't sure what they were. I didn't know if they were demos or that was the album and stuff like that.
Right.
And then, but I mean, I already knew it was dead. But then I sent that to the label, and they're like, "We don't like any of the songs, like at all," which I thought was pretty harsh, because I think there's some decent songs on there.
Yeah.
And then I just kind of and then I made it was a weird time, because I had no direction. I'd sort of lost this identity that I'd built from nothing, like quickly. Because when you grow up as I did, like the fantasy about having, a cool career and like have people listen to your art and stuff like that. I mean, it's such a fantasy that when it actually happens, you think, oh, you feel such relief. You're like, oh, there was something for me. Like, this is fantastic. Like, I didn't have to worry. And then it dies, and you're like, oh no, this is a twist. I wasn't ready for a twist. I wanted a straightforward success story. This is like, rags to riches,
something they make
back
movies out of.
Exactly. Yeah, maybe. I need to finish on success and not hang myself or anything like that.
Right.
So that was rejected, and then I ended up making another album under a different name called Outer Albert, which was was very kind of bit more mellow and sheepish, because I'd sort of lost my confidence. So I was like sort of really buried all the vocals, which is quite interesting, because I'd sort of gone within myself a little bit. And then obviously no one listened to that. And then it was a couple of years off, really. It was just like, but the ironic thing was, like, at that period is when sort of Windmill started getting like lots of sync placements and stuff like that. So financially, like, Windmill was doing better than ever, but the career was kind of dead as well. So it was all like these missed times. Like when I was making the first album, like I had nowhere to really live. Like I was just staying on sofas in friends' houses, and it was quite a difficult time. This was the flip side. I had none of the success, but suddenly was doing well in other ways as well. So, but I know I was trying to record stuff, and I would just keep giving up like halfway.
Right.
So it's like,
it like? It just wasn't. It just didn't feel like you. It didn't feel like how you would write songs typically, or like what was it that just kept falling at the computer?
I guess I felt, like I just felt in the back of my mind that like it was just a fantasy. Like this thing just came and went and died. Like, and as much as you're doing it for yourself, you're like, you can't go from a bunch of people really caring about it and saying, how much it meant to them to suddenly nothing. Like it's quite like the motivation was just like, oh no, like, and it just felt like fate telling me it was the end, you know, not for my life, but for making songs. Like I just felt like as good as the other stuff had gone, it just felt like, oh no, I did have a bit of a confidence loss. So like I would get halfway through a song, just like, you know, what am I doing? Like I'm, you know, need to get serious about something else. But yeah.
And how did you get through that? Because you've been releasing singles now for, you know, the last couple of years now. You've kind of resurfaced and started like where did that research come from?
I'm on your podcast. This is the resurfacing.
Nice.
You're witnessing it firsthand.
Amazing.
Well, I mean, we left. Me and my girlfriend were living in London. We'd lived there a long time, and it just felt like the end of something. So we were both working remotely, and we were just like, let's just leave. So we just like packed up our flat, and we put all of our stuff in my girlfriend's parents. We told them that we'd only be away a month, so their house was full of this stuff, and we were away for 18 months. And we were living in like all these different cities all across Europe. And I bought like a little camera, and it was like, I don't know, it was just like this new like creative resurgence. And it was like actually all the things that I'd been singing about on Puddle City, like getting away, and like I was now doing it, like even though it wasn't through music. So yeah, we traveled, and then like after like over a year, and just suddenly I just thought, yeah, I don't feel myself not making stuff, not making recordings. Like something in me is actually missing. And it actually took me a little while to realize that I don't really need permission to do that. Like just because it's not successful and anyone's listening. I went through a period where it felt like, okay, I've been rejected. I'm not allowed to do this anymore. When actually I realized it's completely up to me.
Sure. Yeah.
So we came back.
Great realization to come to, eh, Matthew?
Yeah,
just that,
definitely.
like the freeingness of that realization.
It was quite freeing. And also to strip all of that stuff away, like, and like, you know, reviews and radio play, all that stuff. And then still realize you still have a need to do it. It's quite nice. And actually you probably come up with more interesting stuff as well that way.
Right. And so have you found that that your songwriting has evolved since that pause, and then kind of it resurfacing again? Like, definitely. How do you feel that your style has changed, or your process of writing?
I mean, I feel so free, and the fact that no one's listening to it, I can say whatever I like.
Nice.
I can talk about mental problems, financial problems. I can just come up. Yeah, it feels so good. And like my whole life, my dream was to like have a acoustic piano. Like it was like I'd never had one, never could afford it. And then when we moved to this town, and like I finally got an acoustic piano, so that was like another catalyst. I've been working really hard at trying to become like a better classical pianist. So I'm trying to like integrate that stuff, like the piano form, into my songs. I think that's quite interesting. And yeah, it does feel like a resurgence. And yeah, I'm really enjoying recording at the moment. Like I really feel like myself again doing.
Yeah. Well, I've listened to the singles that you've put out on Bandcamp, and they're really great. I love too that you do a single, you do an instrumental. Sometimes you do a slower version or another, demo version or whatever. So you kind of really get to see your progress of that song or the thoughts that have gone into it. I love that idea. I've never seen an artist do that before, where they put a single out, but it's four songs, you know.
Thank you.
Done slightly different. I really love that idea.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, who knows? Maybe I'll find the energy to do a collection or something at some point. But I'm really just enjoying like week by week. Just like sometimes the songs take a day, and sometimes they take a couple of weeks. And yeah, I just kind of I found the love of it again, I think, which had sort of disappeared for a while, and who knows how long it will last. But I'm not too worried about it anymore. I just
that's
just enjoy it.
That's amazing reflection, Matt. I love that you're sharing these reflections of like these realizations, because I'm sure most, if not many, or all musicians go through similar struggles, you know, of questioning and what am I doing this for, and then coming to the realization that I'm not doing it for. I mean, it's great if people want to enjoy it, but I need to do it. It's something that, you know, is a part of who I am.
And that's where the good stuff comes from, especially like the
Yeah.
kind of the music we're into. Like it has to be real. It has to represent
Yeah.
real suffering, I think. Like I don't
Yeah.
even think anymore. I'm not even trying to make good songs. I'm just trying to make something that satisfies me or I find interesting. Because I
Well,
don't owe anyone anything.
no, but please keep sharing it with the world.
Oh, thank you.
Because I think that there are people out there that really connect, and I'll put my hand up for sure that I really
Thank you.
connect with your music and your delivery. I mean, it's a very unique, your voice is amazing and the power it has, but
Thank
it's a
you.
very unique as well. Your delivery. I wanted to just ask you too, is like, how did you get your voice? Like, how did you find that high end, and being able to manipulate it the way that you do? Is that
Yeah, I
just
think
like
it just
trial
came
and
from.
error?
I think so. Yeah, just like the same way I was experimenting, like with the machines and tape and making things go in reverse and things like that. Like I just always like making weird sounds with my voice to the point where, and even have it when I speak a bit as well. Like I don't really know how to speak completely naturally. Like there's always conscious thought behind how I'm pronouncing
Sure.
everything, and I have that, when I'm recording, and I just like I think of it like I don't even think of it as singing really. I try to think of it as like sort of like it's like vocal sculpture. It's
Mm.
just kind of like molding it, changing it, and that's why the studio album was quite difficult as well because again you're trying to recreate something that already is. Whereas I really love like because quite often when I'm recording a song, I'll be writing it at the same time. So
Okay.
quite often the first time I sing something will be the take. So it's
Okay.
as I've invented the line, it's been captured, and I think that gives it for me, from my perspective, it gives it a certain quality that probably only I can see because people haven't heard the other variations of it. But
Yeah.
I really like capturing it as you feel it. Like that's
Yeah.
my favorite thing.
Yeah. I know. I get that sense too of listening to your songs that it's like you're on this wave and you're just going for it. It's like it's hard to like, okay, stop. All right, we're gonna do that over again.
Yeah, I don't know if
Oh
I could.
no,
I don't know if
sorry,
I'm
we can
capable
start
of doing
again.
that. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know. I don't know how people do
Because it's
that.
so
But
genuine and you put your soul into it.
mm,
It's not a like, okay, retake over, it's just like it doesn't fit into that mold. It has to just be like, there it is. That's
yeah,
perfect.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, and even if it sounds like wrong, like sometimes that's what I like. Like I
yeah,
really like
yeah,
wayward
yeah, yeah,
sounding stuff. Like I like it to sound a bit broken
yeah.
because like you're conveying something that's a bit broken within you. So a lot of the
Hmm,
time. So yeah.
interesting, interesting. So, Matt, what do we again, thanks for joining me today. This has been man,
Oh, it's been very
so
cathartic for
insightful.
me.
Like you
Yeah,
really
thank you.
have some good reflections that I think a lot of artists out there and have as well. And just having your weight behind it and your experience is just like it's really awesome.
Thank
But
you.
I'd love to know like where do you see yourself going with Windmill, this year into next year? Like what are you hoping um happens, or if you could paint that picture, what would it look like?
I don't know, just make good stuff. Like that's all. I just want to make satisfying stuff. I
Mhm.
want to become a much better piano player,
Mhm.
and then integrate that into my recordings. I'd like to do like an album of like really experimental stuff, like with maybe not lyrics and stuff like that. Like I want to get down and dirty in the garage and get
Right
fiddling,
on. Right on. Right
whatever
on.
that means.
I can't
Yeah.
wait.
Yeah, thank you. That's the crawling around on all fours, making animal noises I told you about earlier.
Right,
That's
right.
that's to come. Yeah, yeah.
So we're gonna play a single at the end of this. Can you lead into it? What are we gonna hear? What's the song?
This song is called Amygdala, and it's a song about my brain, but also I think of it as a romantic song because it's about someone that supports you even though you have a dodgy brain. So yeah, and I think this I actually wrote this song when I was thinking of making a new Windmill album, and I did about 5 songs. This was going to be an album opener, which
Okay.
but now it's probably not. But enjoy it for its own credits, whatever that doesn't make any sense.
Totally
Enjoy it
does.
for what it is what I meant to say. Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you again. It's been a real treat, and I wish you
Thanks,
all the
Chris.
best with your music. And I'm glad that you've come to that realization that music is a part of you, and you can't
Thank
escape
you.
it. Keep throwing it out there too, because you do have fans out there.
Okay, thank you.
And we'll leave it at that, and we'll let you sing us out.
I've been waiting 12 years to hear that, Chris. Can you imagine how good that feels for me? Yeah,
Right on.
that's
Well,
been a long time coming.
it's a long time coming, but you've been consistent, and
Thank you.
you haven't folded it in and said, okay, I'm done, I'm tapped out. It's still in you. So, I mean, I
Yeah.
think just those words are inspiring for all starting up artists, that it's never over.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much.
Appreciate
You
that.
take care. Cheers.
Cheers.
Concepts of